Welcome back. In this section, we are going to see control flow statements. These are if-else statement for loops which you will be using in your program very frequently. If you are from a programming background and have some experience with other programming language as Java or JavaScript, then the main difference realize that we don't use curly braces like other programming language, and we rely upon the indentation of our code to understand which block of the code belongs to which control statement. We will be looking into those in details in few seconds. Now, one more thing which we will be seeing here is the way Python has functionalities to loop over ranges are very impressive. So if you're trying to create a range, you can create easily with some of the inbuilt function like range, xrange in Python. And also there are shorthand notation for loops and nested for loops, which you will be using in your program to make it more simpler. The readability will be little challenging initially, but over time, this will be very easy to understand if you get used to. So let's go ahead and follow along these examples to get our hands-on experience on control flow with Python. Now let's start with the if-else condition. So if I have a variable x, which is integer, and I want to check if the value is bigger than 10, then I can say greater than or smaller than, and then this will be basically returning a true and false. Then we will be actually running a print statement of x. So one thing which you will notice here is there is no bracket. You have a colon after the if statement, and I have given a tab after the if statement. So this is the way Python will understand that this print x functionality is inside the if condition. For example, if I write a print here, print some string, and I execute it, you can see that you have both 12 and outside printed. Now if I reduce the value to 7 here, then you will be seeing that you only have outside printed. So what basically happens in the control statement is the block of code which you might have experienced in other language with a curly braces. In Python 2, we will be basically using a indentation, which is tab, to tell our program which is the block which is inside and which is the block which is not inside or outside. So if I try to bring a tab before the print, then you will see that nothing will get printed when I execute it. So this is how you have a if statement in Python. Similarly, we can also expand here and have an else statement, and this will be also having a tab to tell Python that what should be done if this else statement is executed. So I will say in else. So basically we are going to see in else statement printed. So what we realize here is we are missing a colon here, which should be presented after this control flow statement of if and else, which is very commonly missed if you're coming from a different programming background. So you can see that this is the output which is expected. Now let's go into a nested if else. Now in this case, I will just copy the same example here, and I will basically have a else if condition in between to tell my program that what if we have one more condition which satisfy. So I will be saying else if. So you can notice here that my words are turning to green, which signifies that this is a keyword. Now this is specifically done in my Jupyter Notebook environment, and if you're working with some of the web IDs or Sublime Text or any of the editor which recognize Python, then they will be basically highlighting all the keywords in a different color, which will be very easy to understand. So let's give the condition here. If I say x is smaller than 7 and so I'm using a conditional operator here, x is greater than 9. So one thing which I need to change here is I should be making it's greater and this as smaller. So now if I have the value 8, then x will not be greater than 10, and only if the value is 8, then this statement will be executed. Let's try to experiment with this 8 and 9. So what we are missing here is we need to specify AND instead of AND, which is a bitwise operator. And as you can see, if I see the code, I'm also missing a colon here. And you can see that on value 8, we will be printing second else if, and if I give the value 9, then we will be basically coming in this last else statement. And if I give value 11, then I will be basically printing the first one. So this is how you will be executing the code of nested if else. Now, next thing which we will be looking into is a if else statement inside if else. So this is something which is called nested if else conditions. Now, what we will be doing, it's exactly the way you might be thinking. Here, if I say if x equal to 8, then we will also have a colon here and we will just print it. So as we have previously seen that the number which is bigger than 7 and smaller than 9 is 8, and if we match that criteria, then we will be basically printing this. I can make it more dramatic if I have 8.5 here and I basically give 8.5, because then we are moving into floating point, and you can see that still our condition validity is true, and we will be basically going inside this else if condition. Here we will be again having a true value, which then will be printing the second else if. So this is how you have a nested else if condition. You can also have else and also have else if. You can try out that as well. So let's move on to the second conditional statement and go directly to our while loop. Now the syntax of while loop is similar. You have while keyword and you will be basically looping through until the statement is satisfied. For example, if I have a I value and I value is 0 and I say while I is less than 4, and I will be printing I, and every iteration I will be adding 1 to I, and you can see that I have the tab as a marker that what are the coding block which goes inside this while. Now one of the advantage of having a tab separate your code control flow is your code will be much readable. So you have to basically have indentation with your code for your code to work, and when you have proper indentation, your code will be much more readable. So I will just print. So let's try to run it. And what we have seen is we have again missed a colon, which is very common if you are coming from a different programming language. And let's try to add it and run it. And you can see that this block of code is executed 4 times from I value 0 to I value 3. Also, you can have a break statement inside if. So if I say if I is equal to 2, then break. So I will have a colon here. And what basically happened here is once I touches 2, this if condition is triggered, and what it does basically, it's giving a command break, which breaks the loop and comes out of the while loop. So your while loop is not executed further. And also if I move this by here, and what will happen now is with each iteration, we will have a by also printed, 0 by, 1 by, and 2. Now, if I use another keyword, which is predominantly used in control flow controls, is continue. Now, most of you might have guessed what will happen basically when our value will be 2, we will not be printing by, and we will not be also increasing the value. So it will be basically going into a infinite loop. So I will move this before the if condition. So what will basically happen is when my I equates to 2, then you will not be printing this by, and it will be just going into the next iteration. It will skip anything after the continue. And as the 2 value will be increased in the next iteration here, then the value will be 3 and you will be seeing a by. So let's try to execute this code, and you can see that in case of 2, there is no by before it. So what basically happened if I try to add a comment? So in Python, you will be using hash to have a single line of comment and increasing the value of I. And here I will be saying printing, I'll have a tab, printing the value of I and printing by. So these are the main line of code which are playing major role in this output. So if we inspect this, in the first iteration, we will have 0 as I value. The I value will then be printed and will be increased to 1. And 1 is not equal to 2, so it will print by. Now in the second iteration, our I value will be 1. It will be printed 1 here, and then it will increase to 2. Now in this case, as soon as the value is equal to 2, it will not print this by. It will again continue the while loop from the beginning, and it will print I, which is basically the value 2. In between 1 and 2, we have no by printed. Now similarly, in the second case, when the value is 2, it is then exceeded to 3, and we don't go into this control statement of if, and we have a by printed, which you can see here. Now again, when the value is 3, we have this print statement printed here, and when the value becomes 4, we don't have any checks. So still our by value will be printed, but when it goes back again to the top to check, and we found that 4 is not less than 4, then it comes out of the loop, and we don't have further pattern arising of number and by. So this is how you can use continue. It is sometimes very handy if you don't want to really go through further execution in loops. So you have to be very careful with continue, because sometimes it can cause situation which can go into infinite loops. For example, here if I have mentioned I equal to I plus 1 at the end, then I will be basically not executing this statement once I value becomes 2, and this will be an infinite loop. So little careful while using continue in your control statement.
Hey there, check out UI5CN for awesome hands-on courses on enterprise technologies like SAP and more. To watch similar videos, subscribe to UI5CN YouTube channel.